Alright, welcome back to Slip Joint Display. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's been requested of me that I do a full sharpening on a Great Eastern Cutlery. This isn't a sharpening channel, but I thought it might be interesting just to address the topic of how I go about sharpening the edges of traditionals. This is a Great Eastern Cutlery in Sandbar Stag 1095 steel. This isn't new out of the tube. I've been carrying this for a few days, really being mean to it, and it's been through a number of sharpenings already. I've got blade wrap on the edge right there. You can see it shining right in that section. So I've been experimenting with different sharpenings on ways to take that out. That'll be another video where I address that more, but I thought, I can just do a quick full sharpening on this for everybody to see what my process is, my typical process on traditionals. So let's go down that road and see where we land. The stone that I'm starting with is a DMT Coarse diamond plate. This is a Negura stone. I'm going to wet the Negura stone now. It'll come into play later in the sharpening. It doesn't matter for the plates, but I'm going to finish with diamond water stones. So I want to give that a minute to soak. To start, I'm going to put a drop of oil in the pivot. This is nano oil. I used nano oil when I was first starting out with traditionals, and due to it being not as available as knife pivot lube, I started using knife pivot lube more. I have gone back to nano oil to kind of experiment with it and see where I land. I put that drop of oil in the pivot because there's water involved with some of these stones. I don't need a lot of oil in there. I just want something in the pivot in case water gets up in there. So to start, and this is what I do with any sharpening that's not a field sharpening or, a touch-up. I'm going to remove the apex from the knife. Sorry guys if that's nails on a chalkboard, but so that edge is gone. I mean, it's a flat surface now. And that's what I want. I want the edge gone. You do that, especially when a knife is brand new, but you do it in case you have fatigue on the edge. You can get fatigue from use. You can get fatigue from belt sharpening. You can get fatigue from an overheated edge. I mean, fatigue just means that the steel is messed up and isn't going to take a fine apex very well. Still got a little bit there. I almost want to do it until I take that blade wrap out. I think it's going to come right back. It's been coming right back. But then if you do it too much, you're going to have trouble building that apex back up. It's still, it's not a problem to do it. It just takes longer. And one of the things that I want from this sharpening is that it moves fast. Diamond is of course not necessary with traditionals. This is 1095 steel, so I could really use anything. I'm used to using diamond plates and diamond water stones, and that's what I use. This sharpening is all stone in hand. Recently, Richter posted a video of a sharpening, and he approached it from he approached the video in a way that beginners in sharpening could follow what he's doing and take it on and learn. And it was great. It was a really good video. And that's a tough subject to address, the idea of somebody beginning in sharpening and how to teach them how to do it. This is not that video. I'm not doing that. This is advanced. So if you're starting off, watch this for entertainment if you want, but go watch Richter's video because it's very good in that regard. This is all stone and hand sharpening. So I'm actually holding the stone. I'm not letting it sit. Starting off on the tip, blade way up. we're going to end with it down there at a low angle. But for up top, as it goes around, you really got to lift that blade up. Almost forgot. Sorry guys, but it helps to be able to see properly. I'm just checking what angle I'm laying down. Because again, I'm completely rebuilding this this edge. That looks good. I doubt I have a burr yet. I'm starting to get there. Maybe one more pass and then I switch sides. A few more. One more maybe. Again, sorry if this is boring. This video is really going to be one for the sharpeners. But like I said, it was requested by multiple people. I want to check the blade. I want to clean it off. The coarse diamond stone, you can have rogue diamonds come off large pieces onto the blade. And if you simply wipe it, you can catch them in the paper towel and drag them along the blade and cut into the blade. It doesn't matter so much on a knife like this that's patinaed. And as you add patina, you won't be able to see them. But I want to show, as if this was new, what I would be doing is taking the knife, putting it on a paper towel, heating it with water, and letting that drag any diamond pieces off, and then with the wet part of the paper towel, lightly wiping the blade off. We have burr formation almost 100%. You really, let's see if I can angle this so that you guys can see it. No, it's not really working. But there's burr over most of the way. Down here it's strong, up here it's weak. So wiping it on the paper towel here, what I'm doing is I'm just touching the knife to the paper towel and then immediately lifting off. Don't drag it, don't drag it. Again, if you have pieces of diamond hanging around, you can scratch the blade. That looks pretty good. Let's go to the other side. Yeah, we are. So what I've done is using the coarse stone, completely remove the apex and then build it back, completely rebuilt the edge bevel and apex and created a burr on one side then the other. Go back to this side. I don't remove the burr in between stones. I think that's unnecessary and it's a waste of time. But what I do just out of habit is start on this side, create a burr, move to this side, create a burr, and I move on to the next stone. So I want to leave my burr on this side so that when I move to the next one, it's taking it off. Again, not really necessary, but it is the pattern that I follow. If you're sharpening and something happens and you get out of that flow, it's not the end of the world. It's just, that's the pattern that I typically follow. So you can avoid having to spray the blade with water to drag off diamond pieces by just taping the blade. A lot of sharpeners do that. Yeah, that burr is fine. A lot of sharpeners do that. I am simple and I go about it my way. That's the end of the coarse stone. This is a DMT fine. That's all right. Looks like decent burr formation. When you form a burr, what that lets you know is that you've apexed the knife. Apexing the knife is simply sharpening to the point where you've created an apex. Still do this with the fine stone. The fine stone ain't all that fine. In fact, it's worth noting that the two stones that you can really reshape the bevel with is the coarse and the fine. DMT fines are still fairly rough. Let's look. Yeah, that burr formation's all right. All of this is kind of a moot point because this knife is getting field sharpenings and I'm experimenting with putting together a new kit for field sharpening for slip joints. Because of the blade wrap, I want to know how to address that and deal with it. But I thought it would be interesting just to show the damn process and what I typically do. So there is our edge bevel as it stands. If it is uneven, if you need to change it, if it's larger on one side than the other, now's the time to do it on the fine stone. After this, it can still be done. It just becomes more difficult. And what I'm moving on to next is a DMT medium extra fine. So 4,000 grit stone, 6 micron. Also worth noting that these stones are very, very worn in. I mean, this is an interesting stone anyway. But it is very much worn in from where it started. Again, I mean, you guys can see it, but the amount of lift necessary, especially with the Great Eastern cutlery. As opposed to some other brands like Spyderco, there's not as much lift necessary when you're coming around the bend. Maybe some Spyderco models, but with the Great Eastern cutlery, you've got a distal taper. It tapers from the spine to the edge. With something like a Spyderco, you've got a double distal taper, at least with models that don't have a flat and they're full flat ground. So you're tapering from the spine to the edge and from the pivot to the point. It makes the amount of lift necessary different. Doesn't matter. What you need to know is with the Great Eastern cutlery, if you want that nice tight bevel all the way to the tip, lift up when you're doing the tip portion. I'm not really looking for burr anymore. What I'm going to be doing is checking the edge. I can feel whether or not I apexed it. I can also hear it on the stone. That first pass, I could hear and a little bit feel the burr on the stone. And I can see in the edge bevel if the stone's affected the bevel enough. Yeah, see at this point, that's cutting right into my skin as I go across. It's catching on me. And that's what you want. That's what should be expected from a medium extra fine, especially a worn-in medium extra fine. If you get one new, if you don't know how to handle new diamond plates, be careful because they can be extremely aggressive. But as far as one that's worn in, that's what you expect. I think we're done with this one. That's the end of the diamond plates. So this is a Veneve diamond waterstone. So this side is an 800 grit. This side is a 1200 grit. So we're going to start with the 800. Don't go by grit or anything else with Veneves. They're funny like that. Just, if you get Veneves, it's the kind of thing you got to get your feet wet with them and figure out what you think the rating is. Sorry if I'm shaking the camera, but I'm using a Nagura stone to clean off loading from the last sharpening. Nagura stones are typically used on traditional water stones to add abrasive to them that gets in the mix and helps the overall finish left on the blade. It's not what I'm using it for. What I'm using it for is to clean the loaded steel off of the stone. So now the stone is fairly clean. Diamond water stones, or most stones other than a diamond plate, be careful that you don't gouge the stone. So we'll see if we can get through this without any skipping or gouging or anything like that. Also worth noting, since I went right ahead and got away from plates without mentioning this, with any diamond plate, you're using light pressure. The amount of force you need is only enough to have a firm control over what's happening with the knife. Pushing harder doesn't do any good with a diamond plate. In fact, you're just going to strip the diamond off the plate and cripple the lifespan of the plate. You'll tear the diamond particles off the top, and it's not going to sharpen any faster. The diamonds are the size that they are. They're only going to cut as far as they cut. Pushing hard on the diamond plate is stupid. Just pressure, I wouldn't say too light. Again, you want to have enough pressure that you got control over what you're doing, but you don't need to push hard. Also, always put your diamond plates away dry. So, notice that I put it on here. I've got a burr on that side of the edge bevel. I started going backwards. Then I'm going to go forwards so that I don't gouge into the stone. I'm using fairly light pressure here as well. And my grip on the knife is fairly light in case it gouges and the knife wants to move. I don't want to have a firm grip and force the edge into the stone. I want the knife to move freely in my hand so that if it does gouge, it just bounces out of the way and has minimal effect on that apex. Again, I'm using enough pressure that I've got control over the knife, but I'm not pushing hard. The diamonds will do the work. You don't need to use elbow grease. That looks good, I think. Maybe one more. I'm seeing, again, I can see the change in the finish on the bevel, and I'm seeing some spots where maybe it's cloudy because of water, or maybe it's cloudy because not enough passes. Once you get experience with stone and hand sharpening, once you get past the first stone, the whole thing really starts moving. I mean, it doesn't take much, especially on 1095. Yeah, that's fine. I don't really need to worry about rogue diamond pieces at this point. The abrasive in this is so small that it's not really going to matter on the edge. I mean, this stone leaves a polished edge, not mirrored, but polished. Might affect the patina, but who cares? Go eat an apple. Some people, when they sharpen, count passes. That is really a silly thing to do. Yeah, that's apexed. Again, I'm judging this based off of what I see in the bevel, the difference in the finish, and also what it's doing to my skin. So this is grabbing into me, and that's what I want. I can feel the difference between how much it grabs from the last stone to this stone. I know these stones. I know how it should react when it's done. Also gonna, well, it's a little dirty. Leave it there for a minute. See, loading from the last sharpening. Let's not shake the camera. These diamond water stones from Venive, this was their OCB stones, which I think all of their stuff now is, it doesn't even need to say OCB. I've been buying some of their products recently, and it doesn't say OCB, but they're still performing well, some of their smaller stones. And I talked to the owner of the company the other week, and I forget exactly what he said. I mean, I started looking at building this new kit, and we're friends on Facebook, and I shot him a message, and I forget what he said. But the smaller stuff is performing well. So there was a time when there was a difference between Venive and Venive OCB. At this point, I'm not sure that there is. These are Dragon Series stones. So there's a bunch of different, and Dragon Series being large and highest quality, most abrasive. I still suggest the Dragon Series if you're buying the large ones. You get into the smaller stones of the same quality. It may be less abrasive. You can see how little abrasive is there, right? Because this is all metal plate. But the quality is there. That's the most important thing. So move to the 1200. If you're dealing with a clip point, some of Graves and Cutlery's clip points can almost have like a recurve in there where it kind of sinks in a little bit in that portion. If that's what you're dealing with, you corner the stone. Cornering the stone is, you're not actually using the corner. As you would come down the bevel, you kind of almost lift the blade up a little bit and a little bit. And really a better way of describing it is putting the pressure and the focus on this last quarter inch maybe of the stone, and it really makes sure to get anything in that little groove. Just to throw it out there. This knife has been sharpened enough that that's not really an issue, but that's how you deal with that. Also, you may have to accept the fact that you need more than one sharpening on the knife. Typically, I will, with a clip point that has that issue, I will do the sharpening and corner the stone, and it gets this this body of the knife plenty sharp enough. Carry it, use it, whatever. You go to do a second sharpening and that comes out. It straightens out enough that it's really not an issue. You also hear sharpeners talk about locking your wrists. A lot of people talk about that, and it's usually very important for new sharpeners if they're sharpening on a table. What I'm doing here, stone in hand, is kind of all over the place. Now, there's a couple explanations to that. One, I allow these edges to convex. It's a deliberate thing. Convex edges are stronger. I'm not going to name drop, but there's a very highly skilled, high-level sharpener that I'm good friends with who, had all the history in the world freehand sharpening, and the edges would be slightly convex. He was doing some work where he needed to really have the edges exact, and he used a system for that so that he could really control the angle down to, 1/10 of a degree or whatever. And what he noticed after the fact was the edges from the system were much more fragile. That may be a controversial thing to say, but I don't care. So an edge from freehand sharpening that is convexed or slightly convexed, I take it on good authority, it's a stronger edge. Doesn't really matter. Sharpen, do your thing, have fun with it. Just saying. And I don't allow these to convex much, but I don't worry about it. Now, the other piece of that is with stone in hand sharpening. I used to say this with the other channel, piss people off. I would just tell people my hands move in unison. So if one moves, the other moves too. You can get a very tight V ground edge doing stone in hand sharpening. It's not impossible at all. I showed that on the other channel. I just don't worry about it anymore. Just want to go over this one more time. What I'm doing here is I'm coming all the way down to this flat, and then I'm lifting back up a little bit so that the transition is clean between the flat and the belly portion where the edge starts to bend. So I'm working my way all the way down to this point and then starting to lift up, going back, starting to lift up. And what that does is, if there is any visible transition here, it evens it out. Again, I'm working on the body of the knife and then lifting so that in the edge, if I can get it in the light, get the light reflecting off it, if there's a point where you're going to see it change, that reflection. See, it's changing right around there, but it's less prevalent because of lifting the stone up. That feels good. So that's the end of that. What are we, 36 minutes in? Christ. Too much talking. All right. So this is a Veneve. This is another 1200 grit. This is 2K. I'm going to go straight to the 2K. Veneve 2000 grit stone is not a 2000 grit stone. It is a 1 micron stone. So again, if you're messing with Veneves, if you're buying Veneves or looking into them, do not go by the grit rating that they've got. There's different versions of the grit system, and you really can't go by that. You go from one company to the next and it changes. Also, if you're looking at diamond plates as opposed to stones, a 600 grit diamond plate is going to be very different than a 600 grit stone. It's the way the abrasive is on the stone and the plate. It acts different on the edge. So talk to somebody who knows, or get your feet wet carefully. You know, go slow, but experiment. Oh, Jesus. Didn't really affect anything. Just sounded bad. That's why I'm going slow here. But that was the stone wanting to gouge. It didn't really get a chance because I was holding the knife loose, like I said. So the knife kind of moved in my hand and tapped the stone. Sounded bad. Didn't do any damage to the apex. It's not a reason to start over the sharpening or anything like that. Not if you're holding the knife loose. If you got a gorilla grip on the knife, you can damage your apex when the stone gouges, but it almost pays to be holding it loose. Yeah, this is coming right up. I don't know if you could pick up on it, but that was me lifting the handle of the knife when it was flattened down for that shoulder, that or that turn there. Catch a reflection off this. Yeah, it looks good. Sorry guys, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. Stomach's growling. Come on. Should be good. This is a strop made by Northwest Knife Guy on Instagram. He is, at the current time, not making strops, but his strops are probably the best I've ever used. The compound on it is 1 micron diamond emulsion. That's in gunny juice. So made by Scott Gunn. There's a lot of different compound makers at this point. You've got Stroppy stuff and Gendy and gunny juice and various other ones. Gunny juice is very high quality. With stropping, you're stropping at the same angle that you sharpen with. You don't change that. It just stays the same. This leather is very firm. There's no give to it, and that's what I want. You see strops sometimes that have give, or they push in, or they're furry. I don't use anything like that. I'm putting a precision edge on the knife, and I don't have time for guessing the angle because the strop caves in or because it's got fur on it. So it's a smooth leather strop, very, you know, no fur to it, and it is very hard. So that's it. And with a lot of talking, that was a little over 45 minutes. But there is a nicely mirror polished edge. Let's see, I don't know where the tube is to this, but here's a tube to a 39. If we can just, yeah. So the whole body of it is mirror polished. The edge follows around nicely there. The two sides are consistent. Oh, this is difficult looking into the phone. All right, so mirror polished all the way. That's the process. It's not necessary to use that many stones all the time, and especially if you're just going for a sharp edge. But as far as mirror polished edge goes, that's the process I typically follow. Like I said, because of finding blade wrap on this knife, and it's not blade wrap where the blade is hitting the, I want to say swell, but that's not the word, the hump inside the well for this pin. It's not hitting that, it's hitting farther up. So it's up in that area, and I'm experimenting with field sharpenings, which are very fast and I can do on the fly, to see how long it's going to take if I can sharpen that out and make it go away. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And it's not bad to have a really strong system put together for field sharpenings. I wanted to show you guys the process, walk you through it. Like I said, it was requested. Sorry if it was boring, but it is what it is. I'll see you guys on the next video. Also, wait, one more thing before I end this. Got a mirror here from back in the day when I would do hair whittling videos. I wouldn't use the front-facing camera. I'd set this behind the phone so I could see when I could see in the phone what I was filming. But let's just check something. I almost forgot to do this. I don't know if this guy's going to allow me. Nice beard hair. Try and get one that's not so curly, not so bent. There you go. So the edge is hair whittling sharp. I mean, it's a beard hair, but that's what I've got. So, hair whittling edge, mirror polished is more difficult. There's easier ways to go about it, leaving a coarser finish. But if you want to bring the edge up to, a mirror polish and have the whole blade hair whittling sharp, that's not an easy thing to do. Lots of practice, guys. Anyway, I wanted to go over the sharpening, have the discussion with you, go over the details. I'll see you guys on the next video.